Welcome everyone to CGHE seminar stroke webinar number 262. And it's a great pleasure today to introduce to you Kexin Yu. You may in fact see her again in the future. She is an emerging researcher. One of the best things about our program is the way we can mix, global talking heads with mid-career researchers and groups and emerging researchers as well. And Kexin is a doctoral student at the University of Oxford. And I'll introduce her properly in a moment, but let me take you through the webinar protocols. Well, remember that the webinar is being recorded and ends up on YouTube, and you can access the YouTube video also through our site, through the CGHE website. Usually we post it within 48 hours or so, and the transcript of the public part of the chat conversation also is posted on the CGHE website. And during the webinar, please keep yourself muted unless you've been asked to speak or ask a question at the Q&A part of the webinar. There's no need to have your video on during the webinar, but we'd like you to turn it on as we'd like you to turn on the audio when you get to the stage of asking a question. We recommend using the speaker view command in the top right-hand corner there of your screen so you can more clearly see who is speaking at any given time. Now, to ask a question following the presentation by Kexin, use the chat function to indicate your question or the statement that you'd like to make. And from the chat, I will select in people to take part in the Q&A section of the webinar. Usually, if you put your ideas forward early, then you will be brought into the Q&A, providing, of course, your ideas bear some relationship to the topic of the webinar. Now, when you're invited to speak, and I'll give you a warning in the chat beforehand, but when you're invited to speak, please unmute yourself. Most important, turn on your camera, and then when you come in, you state your name and where you are from. Well, pleasure to introduce to you, as I said, Kexin Yu. Kexin's a first-year DPhil student in higher education in the Department of Education at the University of Oxford. And her research interest is an area which we've been talking about quite a bit overall in our 2 years of webinars. Her interests lie in global scientific system and the internationalization of research and research relations in the geopolitical environment. She's got a special interest in international research collaboration and the power dynamics of the collaborative space internationally, and what's happening with emerging science systems, emerging countries, vis-a-vis the Euro-American traditional research leaders. In this session, she'll present a study on the patterns and dynamics of China-UK research collaborations in education studies. Kexin, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon, for the introduction and the invitation. I'll now share my screen now.
Good, we can see that, Kexin.
Okay, cool. So, hi, everyone. Hello from China. It's an honor for me today to present my master project on the patterns and dynamics in international research collaborations. It's a case study of China-UK collaborative ties in educational studies. So firstly, about the research gap. So why am I conducting this research? Numerous studies on international research collaborations have focused on the outcomes of collaborations, which are measured mainly through bibliometric indicators. However, the nuance of collaboration process requires more scholarly attention. On the disciplinary level, many studies choose natural sciences rather than social sciences as the subject of investigation. Also, a lot of those research rely either on quantitative data or qualitative data alone, and not a lot of studies implement mixed methods to provide some more synthesized conclusions. As for the the country, China and the UK collaboration ties are less studied compared with China-US ties, which is one that most people focus on. So in my research, I intend to answer 2 research questions. During 2001 and 2020, what have been the patterns of China-UK collaborations in education studies? And second, how do researchers based in China and the UK perceive their experiences within their collaborations? I choose the time span because China has only started to have substantial international co-authored papers after 2001. And before that, the data is a bit scarce and unsuitable for calculation. So I hope the aim of the research is to provide some information on early career researchers on what international research collaboration look like and how would they prepare when they're engaging with collaborations with China or UK. So 2 theoretical frameworks that I am applying in this project. The first, I will briefly discuss the global and national research systems. So as Marginson have conceptualized, the global research system entails 3 levels. The materiality of the system is an independent world social science system comprising publications and digital-based infrastructure. And the second level of the agency in the research system is articulated mainly through the cross-border collaboration activities facilitated and augmented through people mobility and information circulation. In terms of the ideologies, there is a global diffusion of dominant social theories, methodologies, and excellence criteria. On the other hand, the national research system functions in a qualitatively different logic as the global system. It is managed around a normative center where institutions and individual researchers are subject to national regulations, policies, and government research foundings. So in social science research particularly, there is a smaller share of publication appear internationally compared with natural science research. This is evidenced in countries such as China or Brazil. One of the explanations may be that social scientists in some countries work as the interpreters and legislators of social changes, thus they are more nested in a national context. On another level of centre-periphery model and academic dependency theory, my project takes a critical approach towards the 2 theories and trying to find whether these 2 theories still apply for the status quo of current social science research. The centre-periphery model mainly categorized the word social science into an Anglophone center and non-Anglophone peripheries. Therefore, it is one of the assumptions is that it's challenging for periphery countries to break through into the center, and thus countries like US, UK will maintain their dominance by permanently subordinating periphery countries in science development. Similarly, the academic dependency theory also uses discourses about centers and peripheries. And they argue that the center countries accumulate international difference and recognition by attracting ties from periphery countries through educational or academic opportunities. More recently, the periphery countries are increasingly dependent on the centers in theories, media, technology, research aid, investment, and skill demand. But how that has been changing over the past 2 decades remains questionable. And against that, we can see that one of the challenge for social sciences or the internationalization of social sciences is that the need to incorporate local relevance is potentially undermined through the text-blind emulation, as described in the two theories before. So we can form this ideal that a truly globalized social science field can be defined as a real debate among equals around the level of generalization of social science theory, as well as around the epistemological in social science disciplines. And the key to realize such an ideal is to integrate diverse epistemic roots worldwide and make them visible to pluralize and diversify the global common pool. So based on those two frameworks, I'll present some of the previous studies regarding three aspects: the trends and patterns, drivers and motivations, as well as the coordination and dynamics. So regarding the trends and patterns, previous studies have found a rise in publication volumes and share, as well as an orientation towards teamwork in China's social science research. Also, there is a locally embeddedness in China's social science research, manifested in a higher volume in CSSCI than SSCI. The CSSCI is a China-based database for social science research, which is similar to SSCI, but it's mainly based in China and mainly in Chinese language. So, and the UK, on the level of UK, so it has an increase in word share as well, from 6% to 9%. And UK continued to be China's second largest collaborator after US in SSCI publications. There is, on a wider level, one of the studies found there has been an enhanced subordination and dependence of periphery countries on the center, and their conclusion is drawn from data regarding the preference of reference and also the higher collaborations with center countries from the periphery countries. Regarding the drivers and motivations, social research is closely nested in national transformation and political agenda. So the two have been historically one of the motivations to conduct social research. Also, the administrative pressure, such as research assessment schemes and university rankings at a global level, might push the institutions or individual researchers to engage in international collaborations. Another, on the personal level, some academics seek to draw on expertise, resources, and funding through international collaborations. And also, one of the frequently mentioned aspect is that a lot of researchers found cognitive fulfillment when engaging in these international collaborations. And they also found it helpful to where the interdisciplinary fertilization may occur more frequently in those international collaborations. Regarding the coordination and dynamics, especially for China, there is a balance for the international and local focus. As I mentioned, most of the Chinese social research is conducted and documented in national research systems rather than an international, global system. So that can create some challenges for Chinese scholars who engage in both. The second one is the social relations among international collaborators have seen a diverse trend. Some report that there has been the hierarchical relations between collaborators while others found the social relations to be more towards an equal manner. Also, the diverse cultural background, geographical distance, and language barrier can be other factors that potentially influence the coordination and dynamics within collaborations. We can see some of the one of the journal TESOL Quarterly provides some language broker and mentoring service to inexperienced English writers, so that non-English speaking academics can engage in international publishing more easily, and also that includes international collaboration as well. So based on all that literature review, my project seeks to explore to what extent the previous trends and patterns hold true for China-UK education and collaboration ties, what have changed and what have not. So I implemented an explanatory sequential mixed methods with bibliometric methods and semi-structured interviews. So in this table, I present the process of my mixed methods, which starts from a quantitative data collection. And because the quantitative data provides the participant pool for my interviews, so I collect my qualitative data based on my first step. And as the final step, I synthesized all the quantitative trends and qualitative themes into some more comprehensive conclusions. For the quantitative data, I collected both from CSSCI and SSCI. The data from CSSCI is used to present the comparison between the national research system and global research system in China particularly. This table shows the data collection from SSCI database, and the reason why I use this lengthy search string for social science publication is because some of the publications in SSCI also they include papers from talks mainly about natural sciences. So this could further filter my data. And I want to draw attention to the seventh data set where I document the mainland China and UK collaborated education paper. There are altogether 312 papers. So based on those data sets and some preliminary analysis, I randomly choose 8 participants. I randomly choose some potential participants and send email invitations. And eventually I got 8 altogether. So here we can see that the first 4 are from the UK and 4 from mainland China. The R represents this academic is from Russell Group universities, and NR refers to non-Russell Group universities. The DF is similar. The DF represents the double first class project in China, which is which also represents the high level research university in China. And while NDF means non-double first class universities. And I have a balanced gender distribution and a somehow balanced academic title. So the interview questions include the initiation of collaboration, the theoretical development and empirical work, as well as some challenges and motivation. I ended up the interviews usually with some reflective questions on how they compare with their international collaboration process with individual work or domestic collaborations. Some preliminary data analysis is conducted. So the data from SSCI was, I gathered mainly three aspects from the data. The first one is the funding source. And based on the author's affiliation, I can get data on first authorship and production modes. Regarding the citations, I can get data from time cited and also sources of reference from SSCI data. This figure illustrates the mainland China participated education papers. Around less than 50% of all China participated education papers are collaborated with at least one international collaborator. And that proportion is a bit lower for the UK participated education papers, which is around 26%. For the China-UK collaborated papers, we can see that around 50% of the of collaborated papers have a Chinese first authorship, and about 35% has a UK first authorship. So next, I will present the findings and discussions in more detail. The first figure shows the education outputs against all the social science outputs. We can see that there is actually a gradual increase in the share of education papers in all social science papers. Here, this figure illustrates the production of China and the UK-based education papers, as well as their respective share in all education papers. We can see there, while the UK production is much higher than the China production, the share of UK participated education in all papers have been gradually decreasing, while that of China is gradually increasing. So this figure illustrates the comparison between the national research activity and global research activity in education for China, because we can see that the green bar represents papers documented in CSSCI, while the yellow bar, which is not very significant, represents papers indexed in SSCI. The contrast is very significant, but with the gradual decrease of production in CSSCI, we can see that the share of SSCI indexed paper is increasing, and especially for the last 5 years. So we can potentially anticipate the growing importance of SSCI indexed papers in all papers in education studies for China. In terms of the international collaborations and first authorship, we can see in this figure that there is a fluctuating trend for China over the past 2 decades in terms of the share of international collaboration and also the share of China's first authorship in all its internationally collaborated papers. For the UK, the production has been more continuous and with a minor increase in the share of international collaboration. We can actually see that the share of UK's first authorship in its collaborated papers have been stayed around 40%. For the UK and China collaborated papers, I gathered the data for the first authorship, and on my left-hand side, we can see that about 50% of all collaborated papers has a Chinese first authorship, and that share for the UK is about 35%. So we can see that around half of China-UK collaborations have a Chinese first authorship. On the next aspect of citations, we can see that for China participating education papers, the resources, the references mainly come from China, USA, and Australia. And if we break that down into four 5-year periods, we can see that the share of China's reference is gradually increasing, while that of US is gradually decreasing. On the UK side, around 1/4 of all the citations are UK based, and that for the UK, the reference based in UK is also increasing over the past 2 decades, and especially the China-based references has increased significantly during the 4 5-year periods. If we look at the China-UK collaborative paper, we can see that about 27% of the citations come from China, and UK ranked the second at around 18%. There's also the China-based reference and UK-based reference have both increased during the last 2 decades. Particularly within citation aspect, if we look at the highly cited papers, there is about 2% in all social science papers produced by mainland China that are collected as the highly cited papers, and that number for the UK is around 1.5%. This is potentially because UK produce much more social science papers than China. On the last aspect of quantitative data, I look at the funding sources. So for China, most of the funding agencies are based in China. This is also true for UK. And when we look at the China-UK education, collaborated education research, we can see that 6 out of 10 biggest funding agencies are based in China, while 4 of them are based in UK. If we look at that number in proportion, around 70% of funding agencies are China-based, and around 15% of funding agencies are based in UK. So this is a significant contrast between the two source of funding agencies. So here's a brief summary of all the quantitative findings, and we can move on to the qualitative data. Firstly, about the initiation of collaborations, my interviews have found that one of the most frequently mentioned route of initiation has been through prior personal networks. Another quite frequently mentioned route has been the visiting scholar projects. This also includes exchange programs and international employment. I found there has been a split view on the route of reaching out to unacquainted academics through email, One of the participants said that as long as the information is abundant, he or she is willing to accept such an cold invitation because and he or she believes that the invitation is genuine enough. However, another participant do not value unacquainted collaboration seeker that much, mainly due to the high volume of such requests. Some unexpected findings include one of the initiation of collaboration was based on a business promotion, which did not end very well for either side. Another route has been policy-oriented collaboration, where one of the collaborator from the China side seek collaborations mainly for policy advice. Regarding the motivations of collaboration, one of the several participants have mentioned that because the nature of their research topics have been quite international, so they naturally enter international collaborations from very early on. And all of the participants have mentioned the aspect of cognitive and social fulfillment in international collaborations. And they regard the collaboration as potentially an apprenticeship or craftsmanship that is guided by masters. They also gain a fresh perspective and enhance their productivity and quality in their academic work. One of the participants said that because time is limited, you have to produce as many work as you can with high efficiency. So regarding the distribution of responsibilities, I mainly look at the distribution of theoretical and empirical work. We found that some collaborations have a more equal manner in terms of their distribution of the two types of labor, while others have very distinctive division on labor distribution, when one party would focus more on the data collection side, while another one would work more on the theoretical part. One of the interesting findings is that several participants have reported that they have collaborated with the same partner for multiple times, and their responsibility distribution actually evolved as time go by. And they started from an unbalanced distribution, but evolved into more equal partners. And another academic reported that his self-position transformed from a learner to a more equal contributor, whose expertise can complement each other. There are several factors that challenge the collaboration dynamics, one of which is the publishing in both language, and moving between national and global boundaries can be challenging, especially for China-based scholars. One of the participants said that even for well-established and respected scholars in China, they need to adapt themselves into the international stage when they try to collaborate internationally or publish internationally. Also, the competitions between collaborators have been one of the tension. One participant report that it's difficult for the collaboration when you find your so-called partners are actually more ambitious for their personal and institutional progress rather than the project progress. Several aspects that echoes with the previous finding on the factors that maintain collaboration dynamics. The first one is trust building. Two of the participants emphasize the importance of in-person visit instead of meeting online. Another frequently mentioned theme is cultural awareness, and related to that, the awareness of politeness and criticality, especially for collaborations between China and the UK. One of the participants said that the UK academics were raised to hone their criticality, and they are more used to argue about every aspect of the research compared with Chinese researchers. Some of the reflections on international collaborations have emerged. Firstly, about the value of collaborations. One of the participants said that he or she found international collaborations make their arguments more robust and transferable, and also applicable to other contexts. Also, there has been some reflections on the limitations of such international collaboration trend, saying that some of the research topics might be better pursued individually rather than with other collaborators. About the funding, the data interviews with participants revealed that funding is not a major motivator or a major challenge for collaborators in social sciences, or particularly in education studies. And some comparisons between natural science and social science have emerged. One of the participants said that for the STEM subjects, the collaboration is the goal for the collaboration is generally to seek commonality. But for social sciences, the aim for collaboration is to bring about more understanding and differences based on various cultural identities and within the collaborating scholars. And also some comparisons between China and the UK in terms of their academic environment and research assessment schemes have emerged. Some UK participants have mentioned that China-based researchers would aim only for top journals with high impact factor, while a lot of UK-based researchers wouldn't mind publish only in those high impact factor journals, but they pay more attention to the target audience. And also there's a tension in the value between people in the front line and people in management in the real academic work. So many of the participants from both China and the UK have argued for more trust and autonomy within their research and collaborations. So here's a brief summary of the qualitative findings, including the procedure of international collaborations, and also on the shaping forces of international collaborations. So finally, some discussions and a more synthesized conclusion. From the data, we can see that there is a huge diversity in the approaches, the process, and outcomes of collaborations. The intensity and the distribution of responsibility formed a whole continuum of collaboration, and they differ from each other with very distinctive features. Secondly, we can see that competitions at individual and institutional national levels might significantly tension the development of collaborations. Also noted earlier, the funding does not significantly motivate or tension the development of international research collaboration in education studies, which might be a bit different from that in the natural science field. Regarding the first authorship, we can see that there actually have been multiple ways to interpret the first authorship for the collaborations which takes on an apprenticeship mode, the first authorship usually goes to the one who do the empirical work rather than who contributes more to the whole collaboration. And we found that the social relations within collaborators are actually fluid and shifting as time go by. And within those more stable collaboration team, where multiple projects or publications have established, there is a trend that the relations are moving towards more equal compared with other collaborations. So finally, we found that with the dissolving of hierarchical relations comes the pluralization of theoretical thoughts, where multiple participants have reported that they have gradually drawn on each other's expertise and cultures, and also their perspective to understand the social phenomena, so that their theoretical frameworks are much more enriched compared with doing research individually. So I'll stop here, and I welcome any questions and comments.
Well, that was a very interesting study, Kexin, and you've given us a lot to think about, and there's a lot of perspective, a lot of data, good insight into what the literature is saying, but also good insight into what your findings can say. I'm going to ask you the big question and one other, and then we'll pass to our call list, and that will begin with Vincent Carpentier. But my big question, of course, is the question about which we can't answer easily, and that's the question about where it's all going. And we're all of us who are interested in the China-West relationship at the moment are watching it with great interest. And on one hand, we've had the process that you've articulated of the rolling out, the development, the increase of collaboration over time. And the nature of networks is such that when useful relationships can be forged, then they'll keep on expanding and growing over time. That's inevitable, providing the conditions that support network collaboration are maintained or improved. You'll see growth in collaboration over time. On the other hand, you've got two factors which might be pushing things in the opposite direction. One is the SSCI decision, the decision taken in China to no longer make compulsory or give the same priority to international publication at the point of academic appointment and promotion and the tenuring process and so on in Chinese universities. So no longer quite the same value attached to international collaboration. Perhaps also a view which is expressed in government circles that the most important tasks are the other local and national provincial ones. They're focusing on social science problems, and which I'm sure is always the case in social science, really, in every country. But may in this case be a view that lesser priority should be given to contributing to the internationally based literature and using international concepts and problems as the focus, and more to local and national problems. So you've got the SSCI decision and possibly signs of a turning towards more emphasis on national and provincial and local. And the other one, of course, the big one, which we're all kind of watching, especially closely, is geopolitics, the potential for a fracturing of the relations between the US and China, also transferring into a fracturing of relations between other Western countries and China, with possibly a diminution of collaboration in future. So you've got the growth of collaboration on one hand, a possible focus on national rather than international, and possible geopolitical tension on the other. Where do you think it's going?
Yeah, thank you, Simon, for the question. That's a very big question. And I also have noticed that there has been some changes in policies regarding the research assessment documented in SSCI or more national based research systems. And I think that for the Chinese academics, as far as I know and communicated with some of the academics from China, they think that quite a lot of them believe that their priority should lie in the national and the local focus, because they found that the policy have shifted from a emphasis on SSCI indexed articles towards a more balanced focus on both SSCI and nationally based publications. So there is a shift towards a so-called learner aspect, learner self-positioned, and towards a more like we are a equal contributor to promote our own social theories and to voice our ideas about how to address the common human problems. So I think I personally think the trend might move towards more like a China-based and a China-based self-position, so that the Chinese scholars may contribute more to the social theories, and through their more nationally bound research and through their infrastructure based in China.
It's very interesting, because I think what you're saying is that it's not just a matter of external conditions or rules, but it's also a matter of agentic response and agentic development. So agency is changing and forming all the time, so that you've got a situation where people start to see their work and themselves differently in relation to potential foreign engagement and contributors and so on. They start to see the potential to take initiatives and do more of their own. Even in relation to international collaboration. So I think that's an agency can be changing as fast as structure, or faster, and the two intersect with each other, of course.
I also think some of my participants from the UK have said that the COVID situation also have shifted the context a bit, because when they found that it's a bit more difficult to establish international collaborations now than before the pandemic. Yes. Yeah, this is also something that is feed into the geopolitical tensions as well.
Well, some research collaboration literature suggests that the initiation of collaborations often is face-to-face based. Once established, of course, they can then go on an online basis quite well. So that initial stage is very important, though. One other question before we pass to Vincent and the other Q&A. Your data show that China's been funding more strongly been funding collaboration than China's agencies have been more strongly funding collaboration than UK agencies. And this very much fits with what Jenny Lee and John Haupt found in their all-fields study of US-China collaboration, that about 2/3 of the funding was coming from Chinese sources. So what that leads us to conclude is that China's put a lot of effort through allocation of funds and other means to developing collaboration internationally. So a lot of it's been driven from the Chinese side in terms of resourcing anyway. And of course, this also is consistent with the pattern of international visits, with the China Scholarship Council and others funding doctoral and postdoctoral and academic career, mature career academic international visits. And in some universities, we receive many suggestions for such visits coming from China on a weekly basis. And there's not quite the same tendency to work in the opposite direction, nor is there a funding agency that's funding people to go to China from the UK in the way that China's funding people to go from China to the UK. So in other words, China's made a tremendous effort to build activity and collaboration internationally. Do you think with the SSCI decision and other indicators of the importance of local, provincial, and national focus, do you think that China-driven internationalization will continue at the same level?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I've also seen some research that saying that the China have been attracting international collaboration through the founding. Hence, the 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 founding agencies have been much articulated in both social SSCI publications and publications in other disciplines. So I personally think that China is going to pursue this internationalization further in the future because they want to establish more international connections with other countries. For instance, there have been political initiatives such as Road and Belt agenda, and also other other policies that have include research activities as part of them, as part of the agenda. And I think that China have been achieving the China has seen its growth in the share and also the highly cited statistics in following the huge investment in research and development. So I think they have seen that their investments have returned with quite positive feedback. So they might want to push forward such a political agenda further and continue to establish international networks.
Well, funding does make a difference. So the pattern of funding, if it changes and develops, will shape these relationships. There's no doubt about that. Vincent Carpentier is our next questioner. Vincent, are you there? Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Many thanks. I mean, it was a really clear and very interesting presentation. I've got two questions. I mean, they're quite general, and I think the first one you probably addressed that in your conclusion, but I wanted to know whether, to which extent education as a subject field was distinctive compared to other fields. I mean, the fact that it can be quite professional, it is interdisciplinary as well. So, I wanted to have your view and how you compare in terms of intensity collaboration within education and other subjects. My second one is my second comment or question is linked to international student mobility and whether there would be a link between long tradition of international student, Chinese student in the UK, and whether you have seen the literature and your statistics like signs or evidence that people involved, academics in China involved in this collaboration with UK students were themselves students in the UK. And there's one, I've seen that your data can be traced back to 2002 or something like that. So just, maybe it could be a good idea to try to compare that to the trends in collaboration of papers since 2002 to the number of Chinese students that have been studied in the UK since then. But again, great research, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's very good questions. I think for the first one, I think I chose the education as the focus discipline because I think primarily I think it's easier for me to conduct pilot research because I'm personally in the education department. But also I think that I resonate with your idea that education is profoundly professional based, and I found from my data that some of the collaborations are actually initiated from their professional teaching schemes, where when a group of researchers are talking about a curriculum and the course design, and they started to think that we might want to write a paper on the process together and reflect on this the changes that we have made and the progress we have made. I think that education discipline is very professional based, and that's why the communication is also more intense than other more basic research. But I think I need to gather more data on such a topic. But it's very interesting that you raised the distinction between professional based, the nature of the disciplines, and how that would influence the pattern of collaboration. And also on your second question regarding the student mobility, I found that in my data, a lot of the collaborations are established between visiting scholars and the scholars, but also there is a section of like some part of the collaborations are established between DPhil students and their supervisors or their colleagues. So I feel that that is also one of the diversity in the collaboration modes. But because my project mainly focus on academics, so I deliberately move the students part away from the data. So, but I think that is also worth looking at. As you said, if we compare the international student data number with the production of collaborations, we might find something new. Yeah. Thank
so
you.
So just have like, I'm just curious, maybe you don't have that, but just talking about internationalization, offshore campus, are they in your statistics? If it's, for example, a UK offshore campus in China, if there was a paper between an academic there and a Chinese academic, would it be considered as, will it be in your statistics?
Oh, actually, my definition of international collaboration is that if the author's affiliation are based in at least 2 countries, I will count that as an international collaboration. Okay. So, yeah, the scholar doesn't have to be nationality Chinese or UK, but as long as its affiliation is with a certain country, I will. Yeah, I use that part of the data.
So an offshore campus in China, you will consider it as a UK institution, yeah, in your stats, yeah? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the standard bibliometric treatment too. We've lost Punita Luma's had to go to a meeting, but her question is in the chat. Kexin, you might want to look at that and respond to it. And I'm going to bring in Anud Abusalam as well. Now, Punita was asking about diversity and wondering about the connection between your earlier notes on diversifying epistemic roots and your findings. I mean, were the participants able to talk about diverse roots in the interviews? Are you assuming that diverse co-authorships might imply diversity of epistemological approaches? I think you touched on this a bit. And Anud Absalom is with us, and he can or she can make the question directly. So Anud, please come in now.
Thank you so much. This was such a great presentation and so intriguing, really well done. I know we're running out of time, so probably I'll just ask you about the apprenticeship notion. Do you have any idea how the participants were referring to it? Were they talking about it from a linguistic point of view, methodological point of view, disciplinary? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think 3 of my participants have touched on the concept of apprenticeship, and one of them mainly talked me through the evolution of one of his or her collaborations with the same collaborator, and the feeling is that he or she started as a learner because the collaborator is more established and has more international recognition. And he or she found that that is actually a major motivation for them to come into the collaboration, because they want to learn and they want to socialize themselves as a qualified researcher. So I think also one of the UK participants also reported that because they have supervised some of the visiting scholars from China, and they collaborated paper together, and they think that these kinds of routes based on visiting scholar or exchange programs can be counted as the mode of apprenticeship as well. So I think the central notion in apprenticeship is that one of the collaborator is learning from the other one, so that the expertise of one partner is drawn by the other. This can be, like language, writing on the writing side, or on how do you structure a paper or frame a theory into your data interpretation.
Oh, this is really fascinating. And just, do we have time for question 2 about the dependency theory?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze in one more, and so go ahead.
There was question 2 already in the chat. You're really well done on touching on the dependency theory. But how did it impact the collaboration? Is it what you just mentioned in terms of local changes, as in language and structure of writing, or more epistemological differences in the choice of theory?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think some of the interview data on the aspect of epistemological development has been that when they try to integrate their individual perspectives to formulate some research questions and interpret some data, they actually they can diversify they refresh their formal ideas on or understanding of the social phenomena. So I think the dependency can be a word that to be interpreted differently, because when you use dependency, it implies a certain of subordination. But if we look at it from another perspective, maybe that is enriching and mutually reinforcing in terms of the theoretical aspect.
I mean, I think the acid test, is for in terms of the de-hierarchization or equalization of relations over time is when topics, theories, and concepts start to become more plural, so that, instead of working to the Anglo-American, European definition of, of topic or and accepted sort of body of theory or theories, and the same way of framing things, we're starting to look at a more diverse set of ideas. I mean, 3 of us have written a paper on Tianxia, the traditional Chinese notion of Tianxia, as a way of understanding relationships in global higher education, which is different to the usual conceptual framework that's used. And our first tentative step with this is to take this to the Tsinghua Journal of Education, which has an English language version, where we expect it will be taken seriously, and there's every chance that people will be interested in what we have to say. The next step, of course, will be to try and bring this new concept, a new way of thinking about global relations in higher education into the English language literature outside China. That will be very interesting indeed. I want to thank you, Kexin. That was brilliant, I have to say. It really covered a lot of ground, and the way you handle the questions, the way you're right on top of your own material, of course, and but your understanding of the issues that you didn't research, but go beyond what you did in the research, I think was really helpful to us in opening up this important area of the drivers and the character and the trends in international research collaboration, with a specific focus on education, as you did today. Our next webinar, which is next Tuesday, the 25th of January, the 3rd week of our webinar program this year, is on the topic of internationalization and global citizenship. And it's the first of 2 webinars on successive Tuesdays, coming forward mostly from UCL, in the UK, students and postdocs working on issues around global citizenship. And our first presentations will be from Monica Kraska-Birkbeck and Simon Etten. So we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. More emerging researcher material. If they do as well as Kexin has done today, it'll be very valuable indeed. Thank you again, Kexin, and thank you to everyone for participating in this very interesting webinar. Bye for now.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you all. Bye.